getting tired of open world games. We live in this age where basically every game is slapped with an open world, and it seems like most of them actually just don't need it, and that they're basically only there to pad out the length of the game because we have so many goddamn stupid morons online that every time they play a game that's under like 20 hours, they're like, oh, but I spent $70 on this game. I should get at least 70 hours of value because at least 1 hour per dollar should be the time of money. And shut the hell up, man, and you're the reason why game development is taking so long, and you're the reason why we're getting these games that are filled with boring nonsense. I don't need an open world that literally only exists to make it take longer to get from one point in the story to another, or just have a million things to collect for literally no reason. I find games that are designed this way really don't ever live up to the possible potential that they have, and they're honestly just padded out and boring. And that's one of the main issues with open worlds, is that they're boring. Most of them are not designed to fill in a story and give you some sort of journey. Most of them are not designed to be anything other than nice to look at, and that sucks. And it's one of the reasons why when we have games that are a little bit smaller in scope and games that are basically level-based and designed to funnel you through a very nice crafted level where you have these very specific encounters with enemies, you have these very specific story beats, those games are just straight up better. Now, sure, you're probably looking at me and you're going, but excuse me, Scasm, Red Dead Redemption 2 is an open world game, and Elden Ring is an open world game, and the Tears of the Kingdom is an open world game, and those games are wonderful. Yeah, those games are wonderful. You got me on that one, all right? You fucking got me. But those games are few and far between, and those games are developed by extremely good developers. Rockstar knows what they're doing. Well, lately, who the fuck knows? FromSoft absolutely knows what they're doing, and obviously, the studios at Nintendo know always what they're doing. That's just a given fact, my man. But when we look at games developed by Ubisoft, when we look at Horizon, which of course is an incredible looking game, the animation's great, the graphics are unreal, the lighting, of course, it's fantastic. But does that game need to be open world? No, because it feels like Far Cry, just put into a different kind of, like coated with a new coat of paint, slapped with some new paint job, all right? And there's a lot of games that are like that. They follow this exact same type of formula where it's just a massive open world filled with crafting materials, filled with these random outposts that you discover and kill a few enemies, filled with some random hidden little things, but they're kind of the same thing repeated 37 times, and it just sucks. There's no reason to go into the open world. There's no reason to really go off the beaten path, and it's kind of just like whenever you do, you're like, okay, yeah, I ran into these same 5 enemies and I killed them, and now I'm just collecting grass, and now I collected a piece of rock. Who gives a shit, my man? Meanwhile, in The Last of Us Part 2, you're experiencing one of the greatest stories, if not the greatest story in video game history. And you're going through it in these beautiful detailed levels. You're having these experiences that the developers want you to have, and every single one of them is perfect. And that's the thing. When these experiences are handcrafted and they're set up to be presented at certain moments and hit you in certain ways, they're perfect. When the story is left in your hands for you to experience it whenever you want to, falls flat. And my prime example of this is my direct comparison between The Last of Us Part 2 and Red Dead Redemption 2. Both sequels, both masterpieces in their own way, except The Last of Us Part 2 stands above. Now, you might hate me for that. You might be one of those fuckers that's like, The Last of Us 2 is the worst game I've ever played. Except in reality, you didn't fucking play it, and I know you didn't fucking play it, because if you fucking played it, you wouldn't think it's the worst game ever. It's impossible to think it's the worst game ever if you actually played it. So I know you didn't fucking play it, so don't even fucking say it, all right? Anyway, my point for those games is that in Red Dead Redemption 2, the open world exists to give you the sense that you are living Arthur Morgan's story. You live in the West, the Wild West. Sometimes crazy shit happens. Sometimes you just want to ride your horse. But it creates this world that you are part of. This is where you live. This is how the world works. And it's great. It works wonderfully. But in my experience, and probably for a lot of people, I feel that while the story is great, it absolutely suffers because it is given to you through an open world scope. And what I mean by that is because it's open world, you are essentially able to tackle the story at whatever pace you want. Meaning that you can go do one thing, and let's say you do rob a bank. You know, you're oh, guys, get the guns, pew pew, chicka, pew pew, pew 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 pew, and then you're stealing the money, and then you get out of there on your horse, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now we're gonna do that. We gotta get to the getaway. We gotta do all this stuff. Like, they're very clearly setting up these beats of like, this is gonna happen, and you gotta go. But then you're just like, ha 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 ha, get fucked. I'm gonna go fishing. Actually, fuck your whole thing. I'm gonna go hunting. Like, well, what about the story beats that we set up? What about the tension that we just built up? What about that you're in the middle of something big happening and you're gonna hit these triggers and it's gonna continue and you're gonna be like, wow, what a big payoff. No, I'm gonna go ride my horse down a cliff and see how many times I can break its neck. You understand what I mean? It makes the actual story lose its purpose and drive, because it's like when, let me hit you with another thing, all right? You know how people say boomers are always like, those darn kids are always on their fucking phones. They never pay attention. They're always on their phones. Okay, so now imagine you're watching a movie, right? How many times do you pause and go do something else in the middle of the movie when you watch the movie at home? Probably a million fucking times, because it's hard to keep your attention. You're picking up your phone, you're looking at your phone, you're like, oh, what's this on my phone? Or you're like, oh, let me pause this, let me go fucking play a game for a little bit, let me get some food, whatever, you know what I mean? You're not directly focused on it. But when you're at a theater, the only thing you could do is watch the movie. So you're more scoped in. And that's like The Last of Us Part 2. When you're playing The Last of Us Part 2, Ellie is on her mission. She's going through the story beats, and it's perfect. One after another, you're experiencing these things just as she is. You're not experiencing some of the things, and then you go, actually, instead of continuing on my path of what I gotta do to make myself feel better about what just happened to me in my life, Ellie, I'm actually gonna stop and I'm gonna go paint a pretty picture or whatever. No, absolutely not. And the very, very few times where you are given that option, where like Ellie is able to pick up a guitar and play a guitar for 2 seconds, and it's beautiful, it's perfect, it's beautiful. It makes sense in those moments. And it's also only for 2 seconds. You know what I mean? She's not going off on a totally separate journey doing whatever the fuck she wants just because she's got a purpose, and her purpose is to fulfill her mission of revenge. You see what I'm getting at here? One of them is directed, focused. The other one is open-ended. And while Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the best open worlds ever crafted, just like Elden Ring, just like Tears of the Kingdom, the story just loses its grip. And it works well in something like Elden Ring because the story is less of a focus and it's more about experiencing the world. It's more about taking on this massive challenge, you know? You're being put out there, figure it out. Just like Tears of the Kingdom, figure it out. That's when it works. But when you have these story beats and the story is putting you on a quest essentially, and you're just like, meh, I'm gonna go do whatever the fuck I wanna do. It just doesn't work. And I think that's why open worlds don't work a lot of times. They work in those specific cases where the story is less of a focus. But when the story is the focus, you gotta make people focus on it. I think for open worlds to work in those kind of cases, you have to really take away the options from the people. In a lot of times you have to be like, hey, for the next 5 hours, pretend the open world doesn't fucking exist because you're not touching it. We got you to do this shit, and this is what you're gonna get for now. You're gonna experience these very specific things, then you can go do whatever the fuck you want. But until then, too bad, my man, too bad. So I think while open worlds do have their purpose, I think that an overabundance of them is just not right. And I think too many games relying on having an open world just so that you could have more random bullshit to do, like shooting towers and collecting grass, is pointless. Just make your game a little bit smaller, make it tighter, and it'll be a better game. It can be 25 hours and be perfect. Spider-Man 2, the open world is New York, but there's shit going on, and you can complete everything in that game in like 35 hours. That's amazing. The open world exists to be the deliverance of the story and to be how you maneuver from one area to another. But there's shit going on, and the traversal is fun. Make more games like The Last of Us 2, make less games like Far Cry. That's all it is.